The stars twinkled silently in the vast darkness of space as Admiral Ta One's ship approached the massive space station that housed the Galactic Council. His heart raced beneath his formal uniform, knowing the gravity of the news he carried. The disappearance of Earth's entire fleet wasn't just concerning, it was unprecedented in the history of spacefaring civilizations. The docking procedure took precisely 12 minutes, during which Ta One rehearsed his report one final time. His antennae, sensitive to the slightest changes in air pressure and electromagnetic fields, twitched constantly, betraying his inner turmoil. As the airlock cycled and pressurized, he straightened his collar and took a deep breath. The council chamber was a marvel of alien engineering, its curved walls decorated with flowing patterns that seemed to move when viewed from different angles. The room's center featured a massive holographic display system, currently showing a real-time view of Earth's orbital space, conspicuously empty of the fleet that should have been there. 27 council members from different species sat around the crystalline table, their faces showing varying degrees of concern and skepticism. Some had traveled across hundreds of light years to attend this emergency session. Councillor He Jin, her scaled skin reflecting the soft blue light of the chamber, watched him with particular intensity. Honorable members of the council, Ta One began, his voice steady despite his nervousness. Approximately 36 standard hours ago, our monitoring stations recorded something impossible. He gestured, and the holographic display zoomed in on Earth's orbital space. The entire human defensive fleet, consisting of 3,217 vessels, vanished simultaneously. A murmur ran through the assembled council members. He Jin's scaled fingers drummed against the crystalline table, creating a soft, rhythmic sound that echoed in the chamber. Impossible, she muttered, her reptilian eyes narrowing. An entire human fleet doesn't simply disappear. Ta One nodded in agreement. That was our first reaction as well, Counselor. We immediately launched a full investigation. He manipulated the controls, and the display showed a series of sensor readings. Our scanners showed no trace of the fleet's energy signatures, no debris field, no distress signals, no quantum wake patterns. It's as if they never existed. Could this be some sort of human deception? Asked a tall, silvery being from the Outer Rim territories. They have proven unpredictable in the past. The Admiral shook his head. We've considered that possibility. Our deep space monitoring stations have been tracking these ships for years. Each vessel had unique identification signatures, regular patrol routes, and scheduled maintenance cycles. The fleet was real, and now it's gone. He Jin rose from her seat, her ceremonial robes shifting like liquid metal. Show us the last recorded images of the fleet. A holographic display flickered, showing thousands of ships in their usual patrol formation. The vessels ranged from small interceptors to massive carriers, all bearing the distinctive design elements of human engineering. This was taken 6 minutes before the disappearance. Ta One explained. He advanced the recording. And this is 7 minutes later. The screen showed empty space, peaceful and undisturbed. No explosions, no distortions, no signs of combat or catastrophic failure. The fleet had simply ceased to exist. The council chamber erupted in worried discussions. Some members argued about the implications, others demanded immediate action. A few suggested sending investigation teams to Earth itself. Through it all, He Jin remained silent, her scaled fingers continuing their rhythmic drumming. There's more, Ta One said, his antennae twitching more rapidly now. Our diplomatic channels with Earth remain open, but... He paused, struggling to find the right words. They're acting as if nothing has happened. Their civilian traffic continues as normal. Their communications show no sign of distress or emergency protocols. Even their military channels are conducting routine transmissions. A heavy silence fell over the chamber. The implications were staggering. Either humanity had achieved something unprecedented, or they were facing a threat capable of making an entire fleet disappear without a trace. We need to consider all possibilities, Jin finally spoke, her voice carrying the weight of centuries of diplomatic experience, including those we'd rather not contemplate. She turned to address the full council. If something can remove 3,000 ships without leaving a trace, what else might it be capable of? Taiwan watched as the council members processed this disturbing thought. His antennae picked up subtle changes in the room's electromagnetic field as various species' biological responses triggered their natural defense mechanisms. Fear, he realized, was truly universal. The massive viewing screen continued to show the empty space where Earth's fleet should have been. Somewhere out there, 3,000 ships and their crews had vanished into the void. But as Taiwan studied the seemingly peaceful image of Earth below, he couldn't shake the feeling that this was just the beginning of something much larger than a missing fleet. In the depths of space, the stars continued their eternal dance, indifferent to the concerns of those who lived among them. But somewhere, in the vast darkness between those distant points of light, the answer to this mystery waited to be discovered. And Admiral Taiwan had a feeling that when it was finally revealed, the galaxy would never be the same. Senior Intelligence Officer Jai-Ho stared at the wall of holographic screens in his command center, each displaying different feeds from Earth. His third eye, a cybernetic enhancement standard for his species' intelligence officers, rapidly processed the incoming data while his natural eyes tracked individual news streams. After 30 years in interstellar intelligence, he thought he'd seen everything. He was wrong. "Play that segment again," he ordered, pointing to a screen showing Earth's Defense Minister Yuri at a trade conference. The AI system rewound the footage, and Ji-Ho leaned forward, studying every detail. "As we look to expand our military cooperation," Yuri was saying, her voice clear and confident, "Earth remains committed to maintaining a strong defensive presence in the galaxy." She smiled at the assembled delegates, showing no signs of distress or deception. Jai-Ho paused the playback and turned to his team. 3,000 ships don't just vanish without causing panic. Yet here's their defense minister talking about military presence like nothing's wrong. Either they're putting on the galaxy's best poker face, or he left the sentence unfinished, not wanting to voice the more disturbing possibilities. A soft chime announced an incoming transmission. Field Agent Sun Mei's holographic form materialized in the center of the room, her image occasionally flickering due to the vast distance between Earth and their monitoring station. "Sir, you need to see this," Sun Mei said, her expression puzzled. "I've been monitoring Tokyo for the past 48 hours. The humans are going about their daily lives completely normally. They're drinking coffee, complaining about weather, arguing about entertainment shows, but not a single mention of the fleet anywhere." Jai-Ho's third eye whirred as it processed this information. What about military families? Surely the disappearance of 3,000 ships means thousands of missing crew members. "That's the strangest part," Sun Mei replied, sending over a new data stream. "I've been tracking military families specifically. They're not acting like their loved ones are missing. I observed a naval officer's wife shopping for dinner, expecting her husband home tonight. Their children were at school. No signs of distress." The room fell silent as the implications sank in. Ji-Ho pulled up additional feeds. Beijing, New York, London, Moscow. Everywhere, the same story. Perfect normalcy. Too perfect. "Sir," called out Analyst Kang from his station, "I've been analyzing their internet traffic. Social media posts from supposed fleet personnel are continuing as normal. Look at this." He projected a series of messages onto the main screen. "These are allegedly from crew members on ships we know have vanished." Jai-Ho read through the messages. Pictures of supposedly recent meals in ship cafeterias. Complaints about maintenance schedules. Jokes about superior officers. All posted after the fleet's disappearance. "Either this is the most sophisticated cover-up we've ever seen," Jai-Ho mused, "or we're missing something fundamental about what happened." The investigation team worked through the night, analyzing every piece of data they could gather. They monitored Earth's power grids, looking for unusual energy spikes. They tracked orbital patterns of debris, searching for any anomalies. They even analyzed weather patterns, wondering if the fleet's disappearance had affected Earth's atmosphere. Nothing seemed out of place. "Sir," Sunmi's hologram flickered back to life. "Something else you should see. Earth's Defense Ministry just announced routine fleet exercises scheduled for next week. They're acting as if they still have ships to exercise with." Jai-Ho's third eye spun rapidly, processing possible scenarios. "Are they broadcasting actual coordinates for these exercises?" "Yes, sir. Full deployment plans, just like normal." "Get me those coordinates. I want probes at every single one of those locations when these exercises are supposed to start." As Jai-Ho issued the orders, he couldn't shake the feeling that they were all missing something obvious. His species had evolved as hunters, developing their third eye to track prey through dimensional shifts. Right now, that enhanced sense was telling him there was more to this situation than a simple disappearance. He pulled up the original sensor readings from when the fleet vanished. No energy signatures, no distortion fields, no quantum wakes. It was as if the ships had simply stepped sideways out of reality. The thought made his third eye twitch. "Stepped sideways," he muttered, an impossible idea forming in his mind. He turned to his team. "I want every sensor we have recalibrated. Don't just look for ships. Look for gaps where ships should be. Look for spaces that seem too empty." As his team scrambled to implement the new search parameters, Jai-Ho watched another feed of Earth's Defense Minister Yuri. She was answering questions about fleet readiness, a small smile playing at the corners of her mouth. For the first time, Jai-Ho wondered if that smile held a secret that would change their understanding of human capabilities forever. In the depths of space, unseen by conventional sensors, 3,000 ships might not be missing at all. They might simply be waiting, watching, in a place between places. And if that were true, Jai-Ho realized, this wasn't just an investigation anymore. It was a revelation about humanity's true technological advancement. The massive dreadnought, Starpiercer, hung in the cold void beyond Pluto's orbit, its dark hull barely visible against the backdrop of space. Commander Du Yun stood at the command center's viewing window, his tall frame casting a long shadow across the polished floor. 15 warships of the Centaurian Federation's elite fleet floated in perfect formation around his flagship, their weapons systems humming with barely contained energy. "Status report," Du Yun commanded, his voice carrying the authority of someone used to being obeyed without question. The bridge crew worked silently at their stations, holographic displays casting multicolored glows across their faces. "All ships report ready, Commander," his first officer replied. "The human defense grid hasn't detected our presence. Their outer system sensors remain focused on their regular patrol zones." Du Yun allowed himself a small smile. The Centaurian Federation had waited decades for this moment. Earth, with its vast mineral wealth and strategic position, had long been a prize they coveted. But its powerful defense fleet had always made any military action too costly to consider. Until now. "Bring up the tactical display," he ordered. A three-dimensional map of the solar system materialized in the center of the bridge. Where thousands of human ships should have been, there was nothing. Their mysterious disappearance had created a power vacuum that the Centaurian Federation was eager to fill. The War Council gathered in the ship's strategic command center, their faces illuminated by the soft blue light of tactical displays. Military officers and political advisors sat around a large table, all eyes fixed on their commander. "The humans have finally shown weakness," Du Yun declared, his voice filled with barely contained excitement. "Their arrogance in rejecting our previous demands for resource rights will be their undoing. Earth's defenses are gone, and they foolishly pretend nothing has changed." Meanwhile, billions of kilometers away, the Galactic Council was in session. Representative Minji stood at the central podium, her traditional robes flowing as she gestured emphatically. "We cannot stand idle while predatory powers gather at Earth's doorstep," she argued, her voice carrying across the grand chamber. "The Centaurian Federation has moved significant forces into the outer solar system, Minji continued, bringing up evidence gathered by scout ships. Their intentions are clear. We cannot allow opportunistic predators to threaten a developing species. But her words met with little response. Many council members had grown weary of Earth-related issues since the fleet's disappearance. Some even suggested that humanity had brought this situation upon themselves through their secretive behavior. Back on the Star Piercer, Du Yun reviewed the invasion plans with his officers. Our first wave will secure the outer system defense platforms, he explained, highlighting key targets on the tactical display. The second wave will neutralize their orbital infrastructure. By the time we reach Earth orbit, they'll have no choice but to surrender. What about resistance from the surface? Asked his strategic officer. Earth still maintains significant planetary defenses. Du Yun waved away the concern. Without their fleet, they're vulnerable. Our ships can strike from orbit with impunity. They'll see reason quickly enough when their cities are at risk. The deployment continued in silence, with support vessels taking up strategic positions throughout the outer solar system. Supply lines were established, and backup forces were placed on high alert in nearby star systems. The Centaurian Federation had planned this operation for years, waiting for the right moment. In the council chamber, Minji made one final appeal. Think about the precedent we're setting, she pleaded. Today it's Earth. Tomorrow it could be any of our worlds facing aggressive neighbors while we stand by and do nothing. A few representatives nodded in agreement, but most remained focused on their own diplomatic concerns. The disappearance of Earth's fleet had shaken their confidence in humanity as a reliable partner in galactic affairs. On the Star Piercer's bridge, Du Yun received the final preparation reports. Everything was in place. His fleet represented the largest military force the Centaurian Federation had ever assembled for a single operation. Success would bring him not just victory, but a place in history. Send the final coded message to High Command, he ordered. Operation Falling Star is ready to commence. He turned back to the viewing window, imagining how Earth would look from orbit once it belonged to the Federation. Little did he know that his carefully planned invasion was about to encounter something unprecedented. The empty space around his fleet wasn't as empty as it appeared, and humanity's apparent weakness might prove to be anything but. As the stars continued their eternal dance, two forces prepared to collide, one visible and confident, the other hidden and mysterious. The next few hours would determine not just Earth's fate, but the balance of power throughout the galaxy. The massive engines of the Centaurian warships pulsed with blue fire as they crossed the heliopause, the boundary marking the edge of Earth's solar system. Commander Du Yun stood proudly on the bridge of the Star Piercer, watching as his fleet moved in perfect attack formation. 15 dreadnoughts and their support vessels cut through space like a knife through silk, their weapons primed and shields at maximum strength. All ships report combat ready, Commander, his first officer announced, monitoring the tactical displays. Formation is holding steady at 99% efficiency. Du Yun nodded, allowing himself a small smile of satisfaction. Years of planning had led to this moment. The disappearance of Earth's defensive fleet had created the perfect opportunity, and he intended to seize it with both hands. Begin recording for the historical archives, he commanded. Let it show that on this day, the Centaurian Federation began its rightful claim to the Sol system. The fleet passed Neptune's orbit without incident, then Uranus, then Saturn. Each planet's passage marked another milestone in their unstoppable advance. The ship's sensors detected no unusual activity, no sign that Earth was aware of their approach or capable of mounting any defense. Jupiter coming up, Commander, the navigation officer reported. Gravitational compensation systems functioning perfectly. Du Yun watched as the massive gas giant appeared on their view screens. Even at their current distance, Jupiter dominated the view, its swirling storms and vibrant bands a reminder of the raw power of nature. But Du Yun commanded a different kind of power, the combined might of the largest invasion fleet ever assembled by the Centaurian Federation. As they passed the asteroid belt, tension on the bridge began to rise. They were now entering what had traditionally been Earth's most heavily defended region of space, but the sensors still showed nothing. No patrol ships, no defense platforms, no warning signals. "This is almost too easy," Du Yun mused aloud, his confidence growing with each passing moment. "They're practically inviting us to take their world." Mars grew larger in their view screens, its red surface a stark contrast to the blackness of space. The fleet adjusted its formation slightly, compensating for the planet's gravitational field. Everything was proceeding exactly according to plan. And then it happened. There was no warning, no energy surge, no weapons fire, no distortion field. One moment, the Centaurian fleet existed in perfect formation. The next moment, it didn't. In the command center on Centauri Prime, General Sang Yi was reviewing routine status reports when every alarm in the facility began screaming simultaneously. She jumped to her feet, her scaled skin reflecting the pulsing red emergency lights. "Report," she barked, rushing to the main tactical display. "What's happening?" The control room erupted into chaos as officers scrambled to make sense of the incoming data. Screens flickered with conflicting information as monitoring systems tried to process what they were seeing, or rather, what they were no longer seeing. "It's impossible," one of the senior officers whispered, his hands shaking as he manipulated the controls. "The entire fleet. It's just gone." Sang He stared at the display in horror. Where moments before there had been 15 dreadnoughts and their support vessels, now there was nothing. No debris field, no energy signatures, no distress calls. Over 1 million Centaurian warriors, including Commander Du Yun and his entire command staff, had simply ceased to exist. "Run a full diagnostic on all monitoring systems," she ordered, fighting to keep her voice steady. "Check for sensor malfunctions, communication disruptions, anything that could explain this." But as the minutes ticked by, the terrible truth became unavoidable. The fleet hadn't been destroyed. It had vanished, just as Earth's defensive fleet had done weeks earlier. The same impossible phenomenon had swallowed their invasion force without a trace. Emergency meetings were called. Military leaders gathered. Politicians demanded explanations, but no one could provide answers. The most powerful fleet in Centaurian history had disappeared as completely as morning dew under a hot sun. In orbit around Mars, the space where Du Yun's fleet had been remained empty and peaceful. The red planet continued its eternal dance around the sun, indifferent to the momentous event that had just occurred near its orbit. And somewhere, hidden from conventional sensors and traditional understanding of physics, both the Earth fleet and the Centaurian invasion force existed in a state that would soon reshape the galaxy's understanding of what was possible. On Earth, in a highly secured facility deep beneath the Pacific Ocean, a group of human scientists watched their monitors and smiled. The test had been successful. Phase 2 was complete. Young analyst Hayan rubbed her tired eyes as she stared at the screen filled with quantum data streams. The small research station orbiting Saturn's moon Titan had been her home for the past 3 months, where she and a team of scientists worked tirelessly to solve the mystery of the vanishing fleets. The numbers scrolled endlessly across her display, each set representing different measurements of space-time around Earth. Most of her colleagues had already given up, believing the data to be corrupted or meaningless. But something about these readings kept nagging at her mind. "Computer, overlay the quantum signature patterns from the last 6 months," she commanded, her fingers dancing across the holographic interface. The display filled with waves of data, creating a complex 3-dimensional pattern in the air before her. That's when she saw it. The pattern wasn't random at all. The space around Earth wasn't empty. It was folded like a piece of paper creased into an impossible shape. Her heart racing, Hayan checked the readings again and again. Each time, the evidence became clearer. She had been looking at it wrong all along. They all had. The fleets hadn't vanished. They had simply stepped sideways into another layer of reality. "Chief Scientist Jun Seo needs to see this immediately," she told the computer. "Priority alert." Jumseo arrived within minutes, his normally neat appearance slightly disheveled from being woken up during his sleep cycle. "This better be important, Analyst Han," he said, stifling a yawn. "Look at these readings," she explained, pulling up the overlaid data patterns. "See how the quantum fluctuations create this repeating pattern. It's not random noise. It's a signature of dimensional phasing." Jumseo's fatigue vanished instantly. He leaned forward, his eyes scanning the data with intense focus. "Explain," he commanded. "The humans haven't lost their fleet," Han said, highlighting specific sections of the pattern. "They've achieved something we thought was impossible. They've learned how to phase entire ships, entire fleets, into a different dimensional layer of reality." She brought up a simulation showing how the space around Earth appeared to fold in on itself at a quantum level. "They're operating in a space that exists parallel to our own, like a sheet of paper sliding between two other sheets. It's there, but unless you know exactly where to look and how to look for it, you'd never see it." Jumseo's eyes widened as the implications became clear. "They've been watching us this entire time," he whispered. "Every scout ship we sent, every probe, every investigation team. They saw it all," Han confirmed. "And when the Centaurian fleet tried to invade, they didn't just observe. They acted," Jumseo finished. "They pulled an entire invasion force into their dimensional pocket." The two scientists stood in silence for a moment, letting the magnitude of this discovery sink in. Humanity hadn't fallen behind in the technological race. They had leaped so far ahead that their advances had been mistaken for failure. "We need to check something," Jumseo said suddenly. "Computer, show us all readings of supposed empty space around Earth's traditional patrol routes." The display filled with new data. Now that they knew what to look for, the evidence was overwhelming. Hundreds of subtle quantum signatures appeared, each marking the presence of a phased ship operating just slightly out of sync with normal spacetime. "Their entire fleet is still out there, still patrolling," Han said in awe. "They're like ghosts, watching and protecting Earth from a position of perfect invisibility." Jumseo began pacing, his mind racing with the implications. "This changes everything. Our understanding of physics, our military strategies, our diplomatic positions, it all needs to be reevaluated." "Should we report this to the Galactic Council?" Han asked. Jumseo stopped pacing and turned to face her. "We have to. But first, we need to be absolutely certain. Run every confirmation test you can think of. Document everything. The Council will want irrefutable proof before they accept that humanity has achieved something we've only theorized about." As they worked through the night, verifying their discovery, both scientists knew they were part of a moment that would change galactic history. Humanity hadn't fallen behind. They had simply stepped sideways into a new era of technological advancement. And somewhere, in that folded space around Earth, thousands of human ships continued their silent watch, protecting their world from a vantage point that, until now, no one else had even known existed. The Galactic Council chamber buzzed with tension as Earth's Defense Minister Yuri walked to the central podium. Admiral Kita followed 2 steps behind her, his decorated uniform gleaming under the chamber's crystalline lights. The assembled representatives from hundreds of species waited in uneasy silence, still processing the revelation about dimensional phasing technology. Yuri stood at the podium, her posture relaxed but commanding. The last time many of these beings had seen her, they'd thought Earth was defenseless. Now they knew better. "Honorable representatives of the Galactic Council," she began, her voice clear and confident. "I stand before you today to address the concerns regarding Earth's recent technological demonstration. First, let me assure you that at no point was Earth left undefended." A murmur rippled through the chamber. Several council members shifted uncomfortably in their seats, no doubt remembering their discussions about exploiting Earth's apparent vulnerability. "The Phase Fleet Project," Yuri continued, "represents humanity's contribution to peaceful deterrence. We have achieved what many thought impossible. the ability to operate our ships in a dimension parallel to conventional space. Admiral Kita stepped forward, activating a holographic display that filled the center of the chamber. It showed the complex quantum mathematics behind the phase shift technology, though the actual specifications remained classified. For those who wondered why we remained calm during our fleet's apparent disappearance, Yuri said, a slight smile playing at her lips, the answer is simple. Our ships never left their posts. They simply stepped sideways into what we call phase space. She paused, letting her words sink in. Then she nodded to Admiral Kita, who pressed a small device on his wrist. The chamber's massive viewing windows suddenly filled with an incredible sight. Thousands of Earth vessels shifted back into conventional space, appearing as if by magic. Cruisers, destroyers, carriers. The entire fleet materialized in perfect formation. Several council members gasped. One actually fell out of their hover chair. As you can see, Kita spoke for the first time, his voice carrying a hint of pride. We maintained our full defensive coverage. Our ships were always there, watching, protecting, ready to respond to any threat. The council erupted in a chaos of voices. Questions flew from all directions. How long had Earth possessed this technology? Was the Centaurian fleet trapped in phase space? Could the ships phase back? Yuri raised her hand for silence. We understand you have many questions. Yes, we can retrieve the Centaurian fleet from phase space, and we will do so after their government signs a binding peace treaty. As for the technology itself, we are prepared to share certain aspects of it with our allies under strict controls. In the back of the chamber, Hain and Junseo watched with a mixture of awe and professional appreciation. Their discovery of the quantum signatures had helped confirm what humanity had achieved, but seeing it demonstrated on this scale was something else entirely. Humanity stands ready to enter a new era of cooperation with the Galactic Council, Yuri continued. The Phase Fleet project proves that we can achieve great things, not just technologically, but diplomatically. We chose to reveal this capability not through aggression, but through defensive action. Admiral Kita stepped forward again. Think of this technology as a shield, not a sword. We can protect not just Earth, but any world that faces unjust aggression. A fleet that can step between dimensions makes warfare itself obsolete. The implications of his words weren't lost on anyone in the chamber. Earth had just announced itself as a major power in the galaxy, but had done so by offering protection rather than threatening destruction. Outside, Earth's fleet continued its silent patrol, ships occasionally shifting between normal space and phase space, as if to demonstrate their mastery of the technology. The sight would soon become common throughout the galaxy, but at this moment, it represented something unprecedented. Humanity's leap from a developing civilization to one that had fundamentally changed the rules of space travel and warfare. As the council meeting continued late into the night, discussing the implications and possibilities of this new technology, one thing became clear: the galaxy would never be quite the same again. Humanity had not just caught up with the older spacefaring races, they had surpassed them in ways no one had imagined possible. And somewhere in phase space, the Centaurian fleet waited, learning a valuable lesson about underestimating humanity's potential. The Great Council Chamber had never felt so alive. Representatives from every corner of the galaxy gathered in small groups, their voices creating a constant hum of excited discussion. The revelation of humanity's phase shift technology had transformed the political landscape overnight. Councillor He-jin stood by the chamber's vast observation window, watching Earth's fleet perform maneuvers in normal space. The ships moved with precise grace, occasionally flickering as they demonstrated their ability to shift between dimensions. Just weeks ago, she had dismissed humans as an emerging species barely worth attention. Now she led the growing faction advocating for stronger alliance with Earth. Remarkable, isn't it? Admiral Taiwan said, joining her at the window. To think we once pitied them for their apparent technological limitations. He-jin nodded, her scaled skin reflecting the light of Earth's ships. "We underestimated them completely," she admitted. "They achieved in decades what our scientists thought would take centuries. While we focused on conventional technology, they simply stepped sideways and rewrote the rules." In orbit around Earth, the Phase fleet continued its patrol routes. Some ships remained visible, a reminder of humanity's power. Others shifted into phase space, invisible but present. The message was clear. Earth's guardians could watch and protect from a dimension beyond normal space, unseen until the moment they chose to act. The Centurion Federation, having learned this lesson the hard way, was now scrambling to make amends. Their new fleet commander, Admiral Su-jin, had been dispatched to Earth with a formal apology and peace treaty. Su-jin's ship approached Earth's atmosphere with caution. She couldn't shake the feeling of being watched, knowing that at any moment, dozens of phase-shifted vessels might be surrounding her ship. The sensation made her scales itch. Opening communication channel with Earth Control, her communications officer reported. "They're granting us landing clearance." As her ship descended through the atmosphere, Su-jin reflected on how quickly things had changed. The Centurion Federation had gone from planning an invasion to seeking forgiveness in less than a month. The loss of their invasion fleet, now held in phase space as a guarantee of good behavior, had shattered their military confidence. Back in the council chamber, representatives were drafting new treaties and trade agreements. Earth's phase shift technology had created opportunities no one had anticipated. Some species offered rare resources in exchange for defensive partnerships. Others proposed joint research projects, hoping to understand the principles behind dimensional phasing. "The humans are being surprisingly generous," He-jin observed, watching Earth's representatives discuss technology sharing with smaller worlds. "They could have used this advantage for conquest. Perhaps that's why they deserve to make this breakthrough," Taiwan replied. They saw beyond simple military applications. Earth's Defense Minister Yuri had made it clear phase shift technology would be shared with peaceful allies, creating a network of protected worlds. War itself might become obsolete when fleets could simply step aside from attacks and respond from unexpected dimensions. As Admiral Su-jin completed her diplomatic mission and prepared to leave Earth, she felt a strange mix of humiliation and hope. The Centurion Federation had lost face, but perhaps they had gained something more valuable: a chance to be part of this new era. Her ship lifted off from Earth's surface, climbing back through the atmosphere. She knew, without doubt, that phase-shifted ships were tracking her departure. The thought no longer frightened her. It was simply the new reality of a galaxy where humanity had changed the rules. In the council chamber, as the day's sessions drew to a close, He-jin made a final observation to Taiwan. "We thought we were watching them develop," she said softly. "But they were watching us, learning from our mistakes, finding a different path. Perhaps that's the greatest lesson here." Taiwan nodded in agreement, as Earth's visible fleet performed one final demonstration of phase shifting, disappearing and reappearing in perfect synchronization. He couldn't help but wonder what other surprises humanity might have in store for the galaxy. The age of conventional space warfare was over. A new era of dimensional diplomacy had begun, with humanity leading the way into unexplored possibilities. And somewhere in phase space, Earth's guardians continued their eternal watch, protecting not just their world, but the promise of a more peaceful galaxy.